international community?
I didn't hear you.
All right, okay. I wanted us to look at the last, which is deterrence to stop all of this. What are we doing presently in your own assessment?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that the legal process, I mean the judicial process for sanctioning corruption, the entire justice system has its own challenge. I mean, people, we normally say in Transparency International that you begin to talk about systemic corruption when corruption pervades the entirety or the spectrum of governance. And so governance also includes, it basically includes the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, as well as the judiciary. We know that our own judiciary faces serious problems of corruption. The present Chief Justice is doing her bit to try to put in corrective measures to improve the credibility of the judiciary. And I really am praying hard for her to succeed, because that would be a vote for women. But think of the justice system and think of the judicial process. It's a very slow and speed kind of environment. And so I don't know how many conclusive cases of sanction against corruption we have yet seen. That's an important deterrent indicator. So you are in the media. You probably have better information as to how many conclusive corruption sanctions you've seen in the country in the last couple of, maybe the last 5 years.
You are also a follower and a keen watcher of what is happening in the media, in the news space. So if you go through all of that, what would have been your assessment when you get to listen, watch, as well as read some of these happenings?
I mean, you can tell clearly that we haven't had, I haven't read of any conclusive prosecution of high-level cases. I mean, the thing is that you have grand corruption and you have petty corruption. Now, what I see, I was reading an article some time ago where this Nigerian was saying that that the tackling of corruption actually happens at the lower levels. And so, you know, the poor man who steals something gets quick justice because he would be sentenced to jail. When it is grand corruption, it becomes a corruption that probably would never be conclusively sanctioned. And so that whole deterrence disconnect basically deepens inequality in the society. I think that you can say, one thing you can say for Nuhu Ribadu is that he did excellent work of bringing some of the cases to conclusive prosecution and for the courts to sanction appropriately. And I think that until we have this, because you see, that third leg of the tripod, you can do everything about the first and the second. But if people do not get a sense that with predictability, bad behavior will be costly, then you basically have put forward an incentive for bad behavior.
Well, for those cases that were conclusive, do you think that the punishment was costly enough?
Oh, there's still, you know, there are many people who would never think that the punishments were were adequate. In fact, some people in the study of economics of corruption try to sort of get some analytics around what is optimal sanction, what is optimal sanction of corruption. That's kind of difficult to assess. But one of the things that I know is that cost has to be higher than the gain of corruption. If you looked at it from that perspective, then you can determine what true cost ought to be. The greatest cost that I believe the society has within its arsenal, even if government decided not to look at the cost of corruption and to make sure that the cost of corruption would deter people from engaging in what is essentially abysmal bad behavior, the citizens can all have their own cost of corruption. The cost of corruption for citizens would be the fact that they ultimately can decide the character and quality of leadership that they have. And so when clearly people think that there is a clear case of corruption, but it has not in any way been given the adequate cost that it deserves, they can give a cost, because legitimacy and credibility resides with the citizens. And I think the government, I think that in a way, some of the reaction that I have seen from government shows that they are aware of this. The citizens are communicating something. They are basically communicating. They are speaking to government. And if government would look at the fight against corruption as a fight that it needs to lead and bring everybody into, it would listen to this statement that citizens keep making. I mean, I recall when the problems of the oil sector happened last year. One of the things that many that I spoke to, I did say to them, I said, look, this sector in its deregulation and liberalization will be much more beneficial to the average citizen. But a lot of the citizens said, okay, so maybe we understand some of that, because we can see how deregulation and opening up of a sector can benefit citizens. We've seen it in the telecom sector. But you know, there is the issue of the governance of that sector that worries us. There's so much corruption that's been in that sector, and we don't clearly see what is being done to tackle that corruption. Now, I would think that that was an invitation to government to engage the citizens, to bring everybody, to build a coalition of citizens, private sector, and government leading that effort to really take on this hydra-headed monster. Corruption is a cancer. When you have cancer, you don't go taking Panadol. You try to do the very painful things that are necessary to make sure that you can mitigate or you can tackle cancer before it takes life.
All right. Could you tell us, you know, when you spoke about the $67 billion foreign exchange reserve, what was the intention? Because some of those in government thought there was some pun intended.
We're not hearing you. You have to repeat.
All right. Could you tell us what the intention was when you spoke about the $67 billion foreign exchange that the government had squandered? Because some of those in government thought there was some pun intended. That the government had squandered. Because some of those in government thought there was some pun intended.
No. You see, look, to the pure, all things are pure. I didn't intend any pun whatsoever. I asked an accountability question. You know, the issue is this. I was speaking to a generation of Nigerians that were graduating from university. I would advise that you should read that speech because it was a very painful speech to write. I was speaking to this generation and saying to them, look, what is your history? And I traced the fact that in more than 50-something years of independence, our lives have revolved around a commodity called oil. And I told them the history of how we have had 5 oil booms that we have enjoyed. The oil boom of the 70s, of the 80s, of the 90s, of the early 2000s, of the 2010s until now. And I said to them, what's the story? And I said the story is that the nations that we started off the development race with have completely left us behind because we have not translated oil revenue in those 5 decades and after those 5 booms to an improved economy and good quality of life for citizens. Take an example, Singapore started off the development block, or the race out of the development block with us. Singapore had the income per capita of just about $300 and something. We had something less than $100. So not too far, maybe 3 times. But today, we are at $1,500. Singapore is at almost it's amazing. Singapore, it's at almost 50,000.